Hello and welcome to another episode of the Barnsley StartUp MeetUp podcast. With me today is Dan Rose of Awesome. They're based here in the DMC and they're a design, content and development agency. And I have no idea how long you've been actually going, Dan. So I'll leave that to Dan. Welcome. Do you want to give us a little bit about yourself and what got you into business? Like, why did you start your own business?
So answer your first question, coming into our 9th year in about 3 weeks.
Really?
Time. Yeah.
Wow.
So we've
Congrats.
been going. Thank you. We've. It feels like literally 2 minutes ago, which I think a lot of business owners will say. Especially in that, I still see us as very early stages of the business, but I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, you've been around for a while now." I'm like, okay, we're the old guys. But yeah, basically, so my job and background as creative director, I do everything from kind of like anything design based. That's something I've kind of studied at, gone through my career in. But I also do film and photography. So it's two kind of roles that usually sit two different people. My film and photography has always been a hobby. I have the obviously pleasure now of being able to do that as part of my day-to-day job, but I oversee all the kind of creative aspects of what Awesome does. Awesome started back as just me on my own back in 2016. The business was something I've always envisioned doing, if that's the right word. Yeah. I'll have my coffee. But yeah, I've always kind of pictured this kind of part of my future as having my own creative agency. It kind of was born out of a bit of a dark time for me personally. 2015, I had my firstborn son. He was born premature. So Jonah arrived, but he didn't kind of make it out of, he didn't make it past 4 days, basically. So he had an issue with his lungs. And I had a little bit of an opportunity in my previous workplace to go and start a new opportunity. I took that in 2016, started off in a new agency. 3 weeks in, they went bust. Wow. So I had quite a lot to take on at a very early stage, which again is quite a dark time for me. But in the kind of bittersweet side of that is I was quite fearless. So as a kind of ambitious creative, I thought, right, I'll do my future venture now. I thought, I've not much savings, I've not got much around me, but what I've got to lose. So I think a lot of people who start a new business tend to have that same thing. It's like they're afraid of the unknown aspect. But again, I felt quite fearless. I thought, right, I'll set Awesome up. Originally started as Rate Good, that was my company name, but a lot of my peers were like, yeah, maybe get something big, not Yorkshire. We know what you mean by Rate Good. But yeah, I started Awesome up on my own, pretty much from my bedroom. So I had a spare room in my house. I was just doing anything kind of creative, photography, video, all the things I loved doing. I got really back to my roots of just being like super creative. I had a couple of kind of clients that I'd done a bit of freelance work with who were like, really supportive at the time. The agency that had gone bust, they'd had a couple of projects that said, look, could you take these on because we're halfway through them? So I had a bit of progression with stuff. Started going. One of the colleagues that I'd worked with at the agency as well, who's my now business partner, Chris, I met him there. So a really cool story that for me personally, because it kind of set up the landscape of what Awesome is now. I just wanted to survive a year and thought, if I can do this for a year and then find a job, that's kind of what I do. But yeah, basically Awesome just kept on going and we're nearly 9 years in now and it's still here. So I'm still ticking away at doing stuff. But yeah, all kind of creative stuff is like my kind of bag really, what I do with my business partner Chris leads a lot more from like a technical side of the business, so he's a full stack web dev, so we kind of really understand what the kind of like creative and the kind of the user story narrative and brand side is from my point, marrying that to actually building cool stuff so like SaaS products, websites, apps. So we do quite a lot of varied stuff alongside the kind of branding, the design, the film content. So I've probably gone around in a mad circle there, but
no, not at all. No, absolutely, thank you. And it's always tough to talk about those sorts of quite emotional subjects anyway, isn't it? Like, do you feel that that's something that is cathartic for you in terms of talking about it, being open about the fact that your first child died and that was the that was the part of the catalyst for you starting your own business and what you have now?
Absolutely, because everybody's got a story and everyone's got a reason d'etre for why they've gone and done something. Jonah for me, as much as it's like the biggest heartache and the black hole, and there's been nothing as big as that in my life. I can, on record say that. But obviously, it's like building that kind of like massive circle around the black hole, and awesome for me is like a really good opportunity to do that. My job's my hobby. So I'm really lucky to do that, and a lot of people I always think say, it's really cool that you get to like colour in and take pictures for a job. I'm like, it's pretty cool. That's why I sell it to a lot of my mates who may watch this and go, that's literally what we say. But yeah, I think it's obviously for me, it's like it is a very cathartic process and thing for me to be able to talk about my life experience. I'm very open about it. As you can probably tell from me talking about it just a few minutes back, it's one of those things that can be a taboo subject for people. Yep. Being a bereaved parent is quite a big thing. But I think it's something that I like to raise awareness of. Currently writing a book in my own time, or at least attempting to, which is anything like my speaking, it'll be about 1,000 pages long just for the intro.
You'll need to get an editor.
That's what you're for. But yeah, I find it a really good healing process. Like in terms of like, I'm going to have a lifelong healing process to go through. But being creative and having my own kind of thing to look after and lead and grow, and seeing the kind of ups and downs that just starting a business has. I'm quite transparent with everything from personal life. Some people just don't want to talk about stuff, and I'm not offended because it is. I understand it's a taboo, but some people, I think they appreciate the openness, and it does show that we're people. We look at agencies and companies and think they're just entities that exist, and you forget there's actual people there who've got personality, they've got story, and that breathes into what their effort is in what they do. It certainly is for me. A lot of my kind of drive and determination comes from my personal attitude towards life. I want to be as strong as I can and look after my family and have a good life. Let's do it at work as well and get a good balance there.
So many questions, but actually, one no, not at all. Like one thing I was going to say there is that some people can find it quite difficult. Other people talking about their loss and particularly those sorts of taboo subjects. But I think a lot of that comes from the fact that it reminds them of their own circumstances and their own experience of that, and it isn't something that a lot of people feel very comfortable with. But the other thing as well is like, you mentioned it there, is it's not something that ever grows better, is it really? It's something that you grow with and you not grow to live with, because that's wrong, isn't it? It just becomes part of your outlook and your approach to life, right?
Of course it is your makeup, do you know what I mean? It's like, it does really, I think the word is the bittersweet point, because like, you don't want anyone to go through like pain like that and a personal experience, but it does kind of make you really like pragmatic and puts things into like a very clear linear point of view. And to me that does, I'm trying to kind of pivot this for people obviously watching around kind of business, but I do think a lot of things that same way. I think, well, actually this has happened, what do I do to move forward? How do I just take one step forward? And that's really difficult, and that does translate to like everything you do. How do I just do this one thing? How do I solve this one problem? I could try and do all 100 problems right now, or one at a time. And that's, I think, my kind of control freak nature is do this pin, knock it down, go next.
Is there a book? I can't remember, but there's definitely a phrase which is like, you're trying to eat the elephant, right?
Yes.
And it's like, you can't do that all in one go, can you? Like if you looked at it,
you can try.
Exactly, But you can take a bite at a time. Sorry to anyone who loves elephants, but
I'm a vegetarian as well, so I'm going to leave
now. But coming back onto like kind of the first year in business, you mentioned there a lot of people like the way you explain it is kind of like you get to play at colouring in and crayons and stuff like that. Like that masks quite a considerable amount of actual hard work and talent that goes into that, right? So what was that first year like for you? What were the biggest challenges? Because obviously, you've got experience at doing the job in terms of filming, creative design and all of that sort of stuff, but what were the challenging bits? How did you get from that 0 to 1 year sort of mark?
The biggest challenge was being a business owner. Literally, that is and I say it to everybody, and I still think now, like I'm very open about trying to learn just running a business in the best way. And I feel like past kind of 3 years for us, which will have context in a sec, is like they've really kind of aligned, stars have aligned a lot for us. Like we really feel like we know how to the engine's running now and we understand it a lot better. The kind of biggest hurdle at the start was like, okay, bookkeeping stuff, like just knowing how to like manage your cash flow stuff, like simple things that when it's your own personal money, you're pretty good at doing it. And then when you go, you've got a business to think of as well, you're like, I've got to do this twice now. And also I've got to think of it's not just me, it's a business if I'm going to grow it to a sustainable model. But I was just literally thinking about hopping project to project. And I think the pressure cooker there is that you get stressed very quickly because you're in that honeymoon period. I'm really excited, I'll do this. Let's just say yes to everything. Let's just underprice ourselves because we want to win every job. And you set yourself up in like this expectation and people go, oh, Dan's like, you know, £1 an hour. I'm not that rate. But you kind of give yourself like a very low value and then almost like you set yourself up on that foot. And it's not knowing what do my competitors charge? You know, how can I be competitive with it? Should I be near that? All these kind of cues you get and you go, oh, I just panic and go, I think it's this, I've freelanced a bit, I have an idea from a previous year. You're kind of doing guesswork, and that's that first year. It is a bit like, it's a bit like having there's a phrase somewhere about the dance, learn to dance. It's like you just, where do I go next? How do I get right where I put a foot wrong? And you're going to make them mistakes and you feel like your world's fall apart, going, oh, it's all going to finish tomorrow. And then actually you realise, no, I've just got to take that experience and go, right, I've done this, next time, learn as you go. And I think once you click into that kind of motive as a like new business owner, you start to feel a lot healthier going, it's fine to make mistakes. And I say it now with our team, I say like, look, our studio should be a space that if you're going to make a mistake, or I'm saying you're going to make one, if you make a mistake, it's knowing how to go, right, this has happened, this is how we can resolve it, this is what we do to remedy that not happening again. I think like that for me is a piece of advice I wish someone had given me, going, don't be afraid to like fail a little bit when you've never done this before. I
don't think it should ever be a case of if you make mistakes, it's when you make mistakes. Yeah, exactly. Because we all do, right? And there's like, you know, like you say, it's exactly that in terms of building a culture of recognizing how to address that, right? You know, not being afraid to have those difficult conversations, not being afraid to just go, hold your hands up and say, I made a mistake. I need some help to fix that. And whether that's internally or whether that's seeking assistance from other agencies or from other from other areas, like from third parties and things like that, you know, like being able to admit that you're not infallible is actually quite a big step, isn't it?
Well, it's like design-led thinking, isn't it? You're going to come to a solution after your previous ones have failed in your own mind. And I think like that to me is something that always fits for me, is that I think it's just setting yourself up. It's my old college tutor once said, like, you know, famous quote, and we're putting a lot of quotes into it, even though I've not even given an exact quote last time. Fail to prepare to fail.
Yes.
You know, and I think that's something that really stuck with me when I was right back at college. I thought, you know, thinking back to them days, I'd always do my final piece of work first and do all my coursebook work at the end. I was like that absolute person. Like, I just want to, I've got a really cool idea, I'm going to do it. And I start reverse engineering it at college and uni and be like, oh, actually, no, this has changed. Then you're in this like weird circle stuff. So I think, again, just going back to your roots, you're just planning stuff and going, how do I ask for advice? And that, for me, a big game changer where, you know, you've had Ben on from Enterprise and Barnsley and at Launchpad. You know, Ben was my key account manager at Launchpad, and when I just were going, right, how do I learn how to run a business? And it, you know, Launchpad had come up, and I spoke to Ben, and Ben was like, okay, have you got your business plan in place? I'm like, nope. Have you done this? Nope. And I'm going, okay, and I'm feeling like really embarrassed sat there, and he's like, it's fine, everybody else is exactly the same, don't worry. And I thought, I needed that, and it's nice that like that's stuck, and still now, you know, we can rely on that support that we've got. We're really lucky to have that. I refer so many people to Launchpad. I know yourself, you'll refer people on as well, because you know the value of that service, and that's kind of what you're missing. And awareness is important for those kind of projects, because the teacher, it's almost like the soft skills of business, just like going, this is okay, like, and this is what you just do it background, like, have you got contracts, have you got this, going, right, okay, where do I go for that, what support can I get? And then all of a sudden you go, I feel on top of this now, and then you want to share it with everyone else. And I feel like having that information is great, but then sharing it with peers is even better, because then when you've got recommendation and trust off somebody, it's that kind of like, oh, they've told me this, and you feel like responsible to kind of like take the torch and pass it on a little bit. And I feel like that as a business owner is important to tap into that. I was never really big on networking and events. Like, I'll go to it, I can talk for England, but I don't really see a benefit in just doing like cold call sales, like, oh, you need this from me, type of business card. What I'd find better is a conversation going, actually, have you had this before? Have you experienced this? Or what have you done about hiring somebody? I'm really open about that. Me and Chris, my business partner, we're like, we've never hired anybody for this role. What do we do? Spoke to his peers first, said, what have you found? And like, well, actually, this is difficult. You go, I'm glad you're finding that, because we're finding it. Like, what's the talent pool like? And be a really open conversation. That's a better conversation to have. But you kind of then wish, I wish I'd done that like 4 years ago. It might have got me to this point, but yeah, shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Yeah, but then, you know, again, it comes down to your own mental place, you know, where you are as a business owner, where your business is, and being able to feel comfortable in terms of going to your peers and saying, I don't know how to do this, because there's still a lot of, and there always will be a lot of kind of competition element, right? In terms of other business owners, or being the first person to come to a group and say, we're doing this, and it kicks ass, right? You know, there's perceived kudos in that. But the fact is that the vast majority of stuff that we do is stuff that people have been doing for years, hundreds of years, whatever, you know, like it's all still the same thing, because you're dealing with people. And so I was going to ask about that, like, growth period. Like, when did you meet Chris? Or I think you said you already knew Chris, but like, at what point did you feel that you needed to bring a partner in, and how did that change what you were doing in the business?
Yes, me and Chris worked together at the agency we're at. Like, I was there for 3 weeks, but me and Chris very quickly understood that designer would speak, at my point of view. I've always tried to make sure I speak and have it prepped for our dev and need, or somebody else working with that. How do I speak in a language that you'll understand? Chris, as a developer, always tried to break down development kind of expectations to designers and marketers, because it'd be more layman's terms, but then give you technical info. So we kind of clicked really quickly. So as that kind of company left and I exited and went this, Chris went on to another agency. Chris were doing a bit of freelance work. I was getting website build requests in. I'm like, they're a bit beyond my skill set ability. Like, I would have quite happily gone and learned a bit more CSS and HTML and probably gone, it's all irrelevant because I'm building something else more complex. So I was subbing stuff out to Chris. Chris doing a bit of freelance work. We kept the conversation going, which was really good. We kind of discussed it a little bit when this company had gone down. So Chris came in 2018, but Chris had got a product as well, which really kind of like something he'd spent a lot of time developing, which is like a headless CRM product, which we now have. And Chris were kind of toying a few ideas myself. So we're like, look, this feels like a natural kind of fit to come in. So Chris joined in 2018, 2 years in, and we'd got a couple of projects in where Chris was like, I need a bit more time on this, and it just really kind of gave us a good step to say we can actually build the development arm out, because I was doing all this kind of creative work and then subbing out the web stuff, which felt like, well, actually, we can do something really cool. And Chris also shared that same goal of wanting to have his own, obviously, responsibility, more kind of freedom. And we almost said, like, being rich is more having the time with your family, you know, and the freedom of the stresses we run a business, you know. And I will always say to everybody, there's a lot of time that you never see. I feel now I'm really, really busy in a different way to that I were in 2016 to 2018. But yeah, bringing Chris in just helped have someone else steer the ship a little bit, and extra insights. It weren't just me going, I think this is right. That he's sharing that responsibility and driving it forward. So the growth cycle really for us was expanding out the service set, bringing in a skill base that me and Chris could really deliver, something we were good at doing in, you know, previous job roles. But then it opened the door for us to go, what do we want to do next in career? You know, I really wanted to get much more into like apps, prototyping, doing a lot more kind of SaaS product stuff. I'm really interested in that, something I never thought I'd get into. I did a couple of app designs previously, but really kind of fostering like Chris's insight from like a full stack web dev going, oh, I could do all this really cool like technical stuff. And I was like, actually, yeah, I could design some cool stuff with this. And it just opened that door, started getting some opportunities for that. So that was kind of our growth platform really, with tourers driving it, and then starting to build the resourcing. Right, if we're going to be the doers, what do we need around us? So we need a project manager or a service coordinator, or, you know, a junior designer, a senior designer, and just building that up and pitching stuff together. It really helped like take it to that next step. It was a big shift, you know. My first few years in business, pretty much ran off my wife's salary. She was a teacher at the time, which were difficult, but it was a commitment that I thought I'll do a couple of like part-time jobs for it. So our first studio were above a restaurant in Barnsley.
Nice.
So we got that in exchange.
What kind of restaurant? What restaurant was it?
A bistro, but it's the Keys in Hoyland.
Oh, is it?
So
Okay,
it's good.
yeah.
I'm still really good. Yeah, I'm good. Speaking terms with everyone, it's really cool. They're doing really well. Did
you get food put in a basket and then like kind of?
I was working as a prep chef as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool. So I was doing a shift down at pub, and then I'd kind of have like the space up above, which was nice because obviously they need a lot of stuff like their food menus doing. They need photography doing, so like I was doing that in exchange for having like a space, which gave me somewhere to work from, somewhere for Chris to work from. But obviously we'd got like this base to start with, so I was kind of getting like a little bit of financial investment in for myself just to go, I need this tick over, build stuff. It allowed Chris to come in, so we could go, right, Chris's priority was bringing Chris in from agency.
Yeah.
And then we built up to a point of getting projects in. Once we kind of landed the next project, go, right, now I can start to obviously take a bit more kind of payback out. And just like even that business planning, like I would never have known how to have gone about that with that advice about, well, you can do it this way, this is how our director's loan account works. And you're going, okay, I didn't know anything about this. So it's like that kind of naivety and just being more vulnerable, going, how do we go about this problem? We want to do this. We've currently got this situation. This is how much cash we've got. And just being really honest with like an advisor, with someone like Ben to go, cool, let's plan it. And I feel like that allowed us to think more strategically. I would build this business. So getting to that point of going, right, we've got enough in to do this and move this company to this point.
Yeah.
So his growth plan's been, that were really the kind of like me being openly honest about how we started the business.
How was your wife with that? Like, you know, what was the conversation like with your wife? Because obviously, again, like she's going through a grieving period as well and all of that sort of stuff. Like what was that like?
If I can remember correctly, I think she might correct me after I said, I think it was her idea.
Was it?
Yeah, I think just to do the part-time, I think the part-time thing was more her idea to say like, it's not, you know, more reassuring me it's not a step back because it's for the greater good of building the bit. And obviously it paid off, you know, it was somewhere that, you know, Keys for me were quite like, we had our wedding, you know, breakfast there, and it's a restaurant that we just close to us, but we had quite a lot of links with. So it all kind of natural. We're like, had his wedding breakfast there, then went, oh, by the way, I'm doing this. Have you got any jobs? Took this. Can I have a studio above that? They did quite a lot, obviously, for us there. So I'm always grateful for that. As I said, it's why I've got really good terms with them guys. So shout out to the Keys. Go and get your food from the Keys. Sponsor.
I'll put a link in the bottom in the description.
But yeah, it's like, I think the thing is that we're not... we've never kind of lived beyond his means, so I think it weren't a difficult conversation to have, albeit it needed to be hard. It was just, you know, at the time we said, right, we can do this, and if we map it out properly, we'll get to a point where I can start to take stuff out. We just managed to make it stretch out as long as we could. And obviously for us, we knew that the benefit was that we had a chance to do something good in a dark time, and I think that's what we're kind of like relying on that quite a bit, and vice versa. You know, years later, my wife got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and she came out of teaching, and at that time I was able to go, right, you can take a step back. So we've got a good respect, and I think that again it comes down to people. You know, you've got to, I think, doing this, it's a commitment you're doing and running a business, and I've never done my own business. My mum's self-employed, so I know what it looks like to have like tough years. You know, she had a bakery through foot and mouth in 90s, so she really went through like a tough spell with that. So I've kind of lived through that myself. So going, well, the worst that can happen is it don't work out, you can get a job somewhere. You know,
you've still got a brain in your head.
Yeah,
you've still got skills,
and that's where we're just like, let's just give it a go.
Required,
if we can do a bit of maths, we'll get there, and I'll make it probably sound a lot easier than what it is. But yeah, you know, my wife was great. She was, you know, an absolute rock, and still is now. She's like, you know, really invested, but from the side in the business. You know, she's really keen about seeing it grow, and you know, we just help each other out with that. So obviously I can return favour for her now that, you know, not saying I've got a yacht or anything, but not that I want a yacht, but maybe
it's minted. So, I mean, on that subject of like kind of seeing the business grow, and you know, obviously in recent years you've started to take on staff and like you said, project management and various other things, various other roles. How does that then change? Because it's not the same as bringing a partner in, because they're effectively invested in the business, and you expect different kind of commitment from them, shall we say. But for when you bring in on staff on payroll, how did that change your outlook for the business, or how you thought about the business?
Pressure, number one, because obviously you're looking after people, and we've been in a situation where, you know, when you're not looked after properly, things can obviously not work out. But yeah, just forecasting it. It took us a long time we should have hired like 12 months before. But obviously, you know, we want to be really conscious about not making the kind of mistake of jumping too soon. Obviously, going through our experience of sales in the previous agencies. So we brought in a project manager firstly, you know, could organise all the chaos of, you know, where everything's at, and allowing us to be the doers of the jobs. And then as an opportunity presented itself for a contract we bid for, we just knew that if we got this, we're going to need to obviously jump and bring in extra members of staff. But that would be the greater good of the business can grow to the next step. So we went for this pitch. We ended up winning the bid for it, which was really, really good. And when, again, we just did the same thing, phase people in, just to go, right, let's do it. Who's the priorities that we need? You know, we need web dev, we need a designer in. We were able to bring another developer in as well. That year was interesting because that was set up to be like, this is it now. Like, we've got something really exciting to do. And it still has, really, just a little bit of a shift. But obviously with the kind of climate that we're in front of us with recession looming 2023, a lot of projects got pulled, and that was something that vulnerability stage now is like, okay, we went in thinking this is great, you know, we can do this, everything's kind of lined up, we've got all this pipeline of stuff in, and then all of a sudden, like, you know, Q4 just kind of went nope, because everyone went, we can't spend this on marketing, creative projects that we don't know what 2023 is going to look like. And I think that was like a big shell-shocked moment for us to be like, crap, like, what do we now do? Like, how do we deal with the situation? So we'd got a mitigation plan in to say, right, these are obviously like what we need to do if the worst case scenarios happen, and unfortunately we're looking at one much earlier in that year than what we expected. So we made some obviously adjustments in there. We'd got a couple of things like with junior in on a year contract, so we're like, okay, well, that one's obviously naturally got to be a low priority, and just looked at, again, priority for that staffing. We had a bit of restructure, and then obviously we went, right, let's rebuild again, but go in with, as I said earlier, this has happened. Let's not look at it as a failed thing from us. Let's think, right, it weren't a great experience. It were a testing experience to see how we can mentally cope with that. But then moving forward, how do we mitigate that? And we just really pivoted. Then the growth of it went, right, we've worked this way. Let's never assume this. And I hate saying assume, because I hate when people assume stuff. But it's like, you know, let's look at it really pragmatically, going like, when we have a forecast sheet now, we can see we've got this buffer's great, but actually we want that before we make a decision. And that now, it's just knowing that bit more kind of business prowess, because you speak to other people who do look to run on the kind of bare bones of business, going, we'll do this and we'll cut through. If it don't work out, just get rid of people or shut this down. And
but that's not
us. And that's not us, you know. And we've said that, like, we've got to be really clear about, we want to have shared values, a really good culture. The people have a place of belonging, and you know, one person, for example, who worked for us, I knew another company were hiring, and we were able to move that person on and say, like, look, this is a good, because they were looking for progression, we can't do it. It's just having that kind of really open conversation. I think trust and people knowing, again, the personable side, good people will look out for people, even when something doesn't quite work out. You know, you can say, right, well, actually, I'm going to help you out still. You know, and that's really important.
But it's like, I was talking with Mark Kenny in an interview a couple of weeks ago, and we were saying that same thing, right? Or certainly the way it feels to me. I know that there's other ways of doing business and there's other ways that people approach it. But as a smaller business, I kind of feel like you don't know when you're going to meet those people again, in a different guise, in a different walk of life or whatever, but like where you need them as a business. And if you treat people with this respect, and if you treat people with like you would like to be treated, then you know, you're more likely to maintain those relationships and maintain those bridges, I guess, really, for the future.
Yeah, it's your personal reputation just as much as your business. You know, if everything were to finish tomorrow, I'd hope that people will still be able to go. I'm not saying it will, but if that happened, for example, I mean, look at pandemic, how many businesses have really struggled during and post-pandemic, and that's been, I know some amazing people who've had businesses that unfortunately have just not gone in a great direction from stuff, but that doesn't change them as a person. Even if, you know, a lot of those were just circumstantial, but if somebody just gone, I've got this wrong, don't mean that if you know the person, you know the value of the person, you go, it's fine, because the next thing, I'm still going to engage with that person. I'm still going to look out for him and support him.
So, Dan, there's a question I always have to ask on this podcast. I don't know whether you've prepared or not, but the question is, what's your ultimate sandwich?
Ultimate sandwich? I could be really boring and just say a plain crisp sandwich. I love a crisp sandwich.
As in like ready salted?
That's the best flavour crisp.
Get out.
It's the best. Ready salted hula hoops are like, they're literally
Come
like
on,
the best.
right, we've got to get into this now. So defend your position, defend your argument. Why is ready salted the best flavour?
Just because there's always like salted potato chips, just like having chips from a chippy, innit? But in a crisp. So that's my. I'm vegetarian, so I don't have what else. So.
But like vinegar, surely like salt and vinegar. Though,
I mean,
right?
yeah, but I think salted crisp, just ready salted crisps, as vanilla as that is for a choice of crisps, I just think you can't go wrong with them. Unless if you get shaky salt ones where all the salt goes to the bottom. I love the idea of like the fun, excitement. Let's make ready salted crisp exciting.
What was the shake and bake one? Like, I can't remember. Seabrooks, was it Seabrooks?
Yeah.
You used to get a little packet.
Yeah, but you put it in, it just all drops to the bottom. You go, I've just got one really salted crisp, which is great at the end. But I think, obviously, if you don't like a lot of salt, then ready salt's not great. But yeah, if a crisp sandwich, just if you're feeling like having a cheeky sandwich.
Okay. What kind of bread? Like what? Just straight white?
See, my mum had a bakery, so I'm like I'm not like snobby about bread, but if it's not like
diverse taste.
Yeah, I like seeded bread a lot, but not everyone in my house likes that. So we tend to, if you're going to just go for like absolute nail it bread, Warburton's, blue.
Yeah.
Toasty, whatever.
Medium thick.
Yeah, that's perfect toasty, because you can butter it. Lather it up and it still holds its own. Warburton's bread's like, I don't know what the digestive. They've got something to do with that. Yeah, it's amazing. But yeah, either that or I'd go for, I'm really thinking out on spot. It might just be a crisp sandwich, to be fair.
Awesome.
I think it's great. I think a crisp sandwich is like, everyone enjoys a crisp sandwich.
On a seeded batch with like...
I'd probably, actually, a crisp sandwich on white, if I'm going for a seeded batch, I'd say absolutely cheese ploughmans.
Cheese ploughmans.
Plenty of Branston.
Awesome.
Get loads of Branston pickle on there. And if
pickled onions or just pickled?
No, load anything on it. Even get some crispy onions on it as well. Put everything on. Yeah, we've a thing in my house is we turn. That's probably a really bad habit now. Sorry, parents. I've always as a kid turned every meal into a sandwich.
Yeah.
I don't know why, and I can't eat a sandwich properly. I have to tear it and eat it. I don't like the idea of eating a sandwich and getting all sandwich on my face, so I always tear it off. And both my sisters do the same thing. We both have this weird habit of tearing sandwiches.
My eldest son really struggles with sandwiches that fall apart. Like,
so if
the filling's falling out, like how sometimes there's too much filling and it kind of slides out as you're eating.
Yeah,
it slides out. Like it can't. It really presses him.
Terrible experience at school when I used to. When I went vegetarian, my mum used to do a chicken tikka sandwich from a bakery that she had, but she'd always put like loads of chicken tikka, which is great. The biggest bread cake that any like 8-year-old kid could ever have. And I'd have this at school. I remember once biting into it and it all fell out of my school uniform everywhere. Looked like I'd thrown up on myself.
All of the turmeric
and then
as well and all of that sort of stuff.
Smell.
You're not getting that out at all.
No, but it was like just my experience. I'm like, oh no. But yeah, I think like when you get sandwiches like this, you've got to be able to like chomp it, or if you're getting a stacked one, can I take it off as layers?
Okay.
A cheese ploughman, if someone does like a double stacked cheese ploughman, you've got like 4 sandwiches.
Absolutely.
But yeah, crisp sandwich. It's just great. Everyone loves a crisp sandwich.
Stuff. I like it.
Does anyone say crisp sandwich?
No, the closest was Ria Jackson of IM UK, Inclusive Minds UK, and she pot noodles, so she puts a pot noodle in a sandwich.
Dry?
I don't think it was dry. No,
I don't know why I thought dry. I don't know why.
Dry's pretty harsh, isn't it?
Just thinking that's it.
So that sounds dangerous to eat.
Yeah, I was just thinking a crunch. I think it's going to be crisps and dry pot noodles.
That feels like the sort of advice your parents used to give you, where you're not allowed to swallow chewing gum and stuff like that.
Yeah,
because it'll like do something in your face. Kind of feel like if you're eating a dry pot noodle,
it's like putting a Rivita in bread. It's like I'm a Rivita sandwich with the dry, no butter, just bread, Rivita. And a crisp.
Nice.
But that's the sandwich. There you go. Mic drop. Boom.
Awesome. Good stuff. Thank you very much.
All right, that's good.
Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast today, Dan. It's been brilliant talking to you and hearing all about your business journey.
Thanks, man. That's been great.
That's it for the podcast today. Thanks so much for watching. And as always, the Barnsley StartUp MeetUp is the second Thursday of every month. And all that's left to say is thanks and goodbye.